Good morning on this 27th day of December. Almost wrapping up the year. We have a few more days left, but today we look at Zechariah 5 through 8. And I looked ahead and, to see what we have tomorrow and the next day. Well, on the last day of the year, December 31st, this Bible reading program doesn't have a reading. And that's, so next year maybe I'll follow the reading schedule in the daily bread book because, this one we're a day ahead, but it doesn't matter. As we begin chapter 5 today, we have vision number 6. Zechariah has 8 visions. We looked at 5 of them yesterday, but today this 6th vision is a flying scroll. And this flying scroll is 20 cubits by 10 cubits, it said. So this is roughly 30 feet long and 15 feet wide. My workshop is 24 long by 28 long by 24 wide. So this scroll would basically almost cover the area in my workshop. That's pretty good sized scroll that would have, writing on it. That's what a scroll is, a rolled up piece of parchment or paper that they would write on. But this scroll goes out, and it is the curse that brings, it's what he said, what is this? It is the curse that goes out over the face of the land. For everyone who steals will be cut off, and everyone who swears falsely will be cut off. I have sent it out, and it will enter the house of the thief, those who swear falsely, and it will abide in that house, and it will consume them. So it will take away the sins. It will take away the sinners. It's a cleansing scroll. But then you think about that. Well, who's going to be left if it takes away those who swear falsely and those who, steal? I mean, not that we are, do that, but, those are sins. Are any of us not guilty of sin? It's a scary thought. Anyway, it will abide in that house. And then verse 5 is the 7th vision. The angel talked with me and he says, look and see what's coming. And I said, what is it? Well, it's this basket coming out. And it's the basket of wickedness. And there is a person in there, a woman in there to personify wickedness. And they look at it and they put the cover back on the basket to not let wickedness out of the basket. And then these 2 other figures come with wings and they take that basket to a far off land. So the wickedness is gone. And again, this is a picture of the purification of the world, a picture of the sins and everything of the world being taken away. It says, I'll take it to the land of Shinar to build a house for it. And when this is prepared, they will set the basket there on its base. And chapter 6 begins with the 8th vision. And I looked and I saw these 4 chariots, with red horses, black horses, white horses, and dappled gray horses. And he said, what are these? Well, these are the 4 winds. And then as we read, the black ones go north, the white ones go west, the dappled ones go south, and it doesn't tell us where the first ones, the red ones, go. So we assume that the red ones are going south. But the ones that go north, the black ones, go north. And he says in verse 8, those who go north country have set my spirit at rest in the north country. So the north country, that's Babylon. That's, so this has been purified, destroyed, taken care of, whatever. The winds have taken that away. The judgment is here, and it will be done as God has proclaimed. And then as we start in verse 9, again, the word of the Lord comes to him, and it says, all of these, to collect silver and gold from the exiles who have arrived from Babylon, go to the house of Josiah, son of Zephaniah. So Josiah is the priest, the head priest at this time. And take the silver and gold, make a crown, set it on the head of the high priest Joshua, And thus says the Lord, here is the man who will build my temple. And so the Jews are looking forward to the restoration of Jerusalem, the restoration of Judah, the rebuilding of the temple. And so God says through the prophet Zechariah that this man will be the one who rebuilds the house of the Lord. And his name will be Branch, and then from this branch it will branch out and he will build the temple of the Lord. And, it's kind of a reminder to me that, Jesus says, I am the vine, you are the branches, and we spread out in all of those. And in verse 15 of chapter 6, those who are far off will come to help build the temple, and you will know that the Lord of hosts has sent me. This will happen if you diligently obey the voice of the Lord your God. So it's to hear the word and to obey the word and to know the word. Chapter 7 begins with another time in the 4th year of King Darius. In chapter 1, as Zechariah began, the very first thing is in the 8th month of the 2nd year of Darius. And then verse 7 of chapter 1 was the second time in history, the 24th day of the 11th month of the 2nd year of Darius. So both of those were in that 2nd year of Darius. So now we're in the 4th day of the 9th month of King Darius's rule. And so, the prophet sets the timing, so that we can, look at that. So it's in that 520 to 518 BC is the timing of this. And, the people of Bethel sent their people to entreat the favor of the Lord and to ask the priests, should I mourn and practice this abstinence in the 5th month as has been our custom? And the response is, you've done this for 70 years. When you fasted and lamented the 5th month and the 7th for these 70 years, was it for me that you fasted? Was it for me? Did we do it for God, or did you do it just because? And when you eat and when you drink, do you not eat and drink for yourselves? It's kind of reminding these people that, some of these practices they've been doing, it's more for them and for their benefit than it is for God. So it's just, we can read in the Psalms and other places that, God will say, your sacrifices are a stench to my nostrils, of which I have no desire. They're repulsive to me in so many ways. Verse 8, chapter 7, the word of the Lord came to Zechariah saying, thus says the Lord, render true judgments, show kindness and mercy to one another. Do not oppress the widow, the orphans, the aliens, or the poor, and do not devise evil in your hearts against each other. So these are moral practices, to render true judgments, be fair, show kindness and mercy. I mean, why? That's the way we should live, right? Rather than, being mean and all of those things, but do not oppress the widow, just the moral ethics of how we live, or the correct ethics, correct ways to live and to treat each other. And, it says, but they refused to listen. They made their hearts adamant. Therefore, with great wrath coming from the Lord of hosts, since they would not hear, and, since when I spoke to them, they didn't hear, when they speak and call to me, I'm not going to hear. You get you get the same thing coming as you treated me, I'm going to treat you. Is kind of what God is saying to them. Thus the land was left desolate, and they went to and fro, and a pleasant land was made desolate. So this promised land for the Israelites, this promised land that they have been expelled from now, sent away by other forces, God is saying, this is what I had given you, this wonderful, beautiful, more productive land, and you turn away. So it's left desolate. Chapter 8, Again, the word of the Lord comes. It says, thus says the Lord. I mean, we've heard that, thus says the Lord, several times as we've been reading here. I mean, I underlined it a couple times in chapter 6 and in, verse 9 of chapter 8, but, or chapter 7 rather. But in chapter 8, there's like 8, 9, 10 more. Thus says the Lord. I am jealous for Zion. In verse 2, verse 3, thus says the Lord, I will return. Verse 4, thus says the Lord, old men and women will again sit in the streets. Verse 6, thus says the Lord. It's the promise of restoration, that they're going to be there again. Verse 7 again, thus says the Lord, I will save my people from the east and from the west, and I will bring them back to Jerusalem. They will be my people, and I will be their God. What your promise again? I'm going to restore you, I'm going to restore Jerusalem, and you will be my people. Verse 9 again, thus says the Lord, and verse 14, for thus says the Lord, just as I purposed to bring disaster, I did not relent. So again, I have purposed in these days to do good to Jerusalem. So the promise is there. And then verse 19 again, thus says the Lord. Verse 23, thus says the Lord. And the very last thing we read in chapter 8, let us go with you, for we have heard that God is with you. The people of the other nations hear and see the Israelites and the promises of God coming through to them. And they come and say, let us go with you, because we see that God is with you. And I don't think you can have a better compliment than that, for someone to say to you, God is with you. I can see God in you. I can see you doing the works of God. And that's what we're supposed to do. Do the work of God.